Rome is my favourite Italian city. I used to live there. There is so much to see and do. It overwhelms the average tourist, even on a long weekend. So, I have speed walked my favourite route around Rome. It'll give you the chance to see some of the classic sites, Trevi Fountain, Spanish Steps, Pantheon, that sort of stuff. I'll show you my favourite coffee shop, place to people watch, tips and tricks, ways to get away from the crowds. I'll show you some awesome places to lunch and to go for dinner. Not expensive places, authentic, good views, quality. That means if you follow it and it's your first day in Rome, it gives you a fighting chance to suck in some of the atmosphere, understand the geography, the size, the location of some of the great things to go and see. But it won't overwhelm you. You really get a feel for what Rome is like, and it'll really set up the next few days such that you can suck the most out of the remainder of your time in the city, because it is such a great city. So if you stay tuned, follow it all the way through, you can't fail. Ciao. So an anti-clockwise journey, around 5 to 6 kilometres, eastern side of the river, starting in Monte. It's a great place, known for its really informal restaurants, bars and live music. Piazza del Grillo, which I'm zooming in on now, is where we're going to start. It's got a great little secretive spot to get in behind some of the best architecture in Rome. Look down the hill and find this old steel sort of gated entrance. It takes you onto a metal walkway. Now the benefit of this place is it's very quiet and not very well known. This metal walkway, which I'm taking you down now, you can take all the way through across the road to the Forum if you wish. But I like to pause here because the photo opportunities are endless. It's awesome, especially in the evening you get some fantastic light. But in the morning in particular, it's very, very quiet. Now you're first presented with the Trajan's Market, which you'll be overlooking, which is being restored. You can look across to the Imperial Fora and then a Basilica di Santa Maria. Then instantly you've got the Altar of the Fatherland further in front of you, and then of course the Forum, the Temple of Saturn, and then the Temples of Venus and Rome. What a fantastic view. There's just no one here, it's incredible. So, my recommendation, Piazza del Grillo, find the metal gate, walk down to the end, voila. But now, it's time for a coffee. So I'm going to show you my favourite cafe. Now, if you find your way back to Piazza del Grillo, if you look left, you'll see a road called Salita del Grillo. If you take that to Via 4 Novembre, which is a main road, it's quite busy traffic, you'll see a Cafe Constantino. Now, the coffee's cheap, it's really good, it's a great place to people watch, and it's adjacent to Via della Pilota, which leads you to the Trevi Fountain. If you don't get a coffee here and you get it later in and around the Trevi Fountain, you'll pay at least double. Now, I took this footage in October, and it's really quite quiet for the Trevi Fountain, but just bear in mind in the summer, it can be absolutely rammed, so choose your timings. Now, from here, I'm going to take you to the Spanish Steps, and you can choose any route you like. I suggest you just get lost down some side roads and some cobbled streets rather than taking the main tourist route. Now, I'm going to walk you up the Spanish Steps to the monument at the top and turn you around so you can have a look at the view. But if you chose to stay at the bottom in the square, the vast majority of the high-end shopping around Rome branches off the streets from that square, so bear that in mind. But we're going to circle back round to that area and do it later, because I think I can hear some decent live music at the top of the Spanish Steps, and I'd like to go and have a listen. Having enjoyed that, we're going to turn left and have a look down the main road and track this down towards Villa Borghese. But before we do, we're going to have a look at this restaurant right here. Hey guys, the Ristorante Campini. Top of the Spanish Steps, turn left, about 100 yards on the left-hand side. Green railings, it's closed right now, opens about 12:30. For my money, this is the place for lunch. It's quiet, you get a great view, you know, your rooftops of Rome. It's fabulous. You get a real sense of, you know, what it's like to be here in this place. Yeah, it's pricey. Your bank account's not going to thank you, but your missus will. if you take a hit for lunch. For my money, it's a lunch place, a late lunch if you can, because you get the sun that will slowly go over Rome, and you can watch that happen. But there's not enough life for me for an evening dinner in Rome, so fantastic lunch recommendation. The rosé, can't remember the name of it, it's great, but you won't go wrong with any of it. And the pasta is fantastic, so do it. Now at this point, guys, really you've got two options. You can either bend right into the gardens of the Villa Borghese, which are big. It's more like a park, you know, you can walk around there for hours if you want to, it's very beautiful. Or you can bend left into Piazza del Popolo, but if you do that, what you can do is you can circle round to Piazza Navona and the Pantheon, and almost all the way back round to where we started at Monte. So, you know, that's good with the lunch, with a boozy lunch, with some of that rosé, for instance, then that's enough of a day. You've got all the shops in between, all of that. You know, your family are going to appreciate it. You're going to have done by about 5 or 6 miles by that point, maybe, depends if you've been zigzagging around. But anyway, I'll carry on and I'll show you the rest of it then.
So you're going to descend down some steps under a wooded canopy, and you're going to walk yourself around the back of Piazza del Popolo and look at the monument like that. When you do, you're going to see 3 main streets. The one in the middle, if you look straight down it, will make you look at the altar of the fatherland. That has some basic shops, your sort of Gap, that sort of thing. The one on the left, that'll take you straight back to the Spanish Steps, and that's your high-end shopping street, your Missonis, your Dolce & Gabbanas, Fendis, that sort of thing. And if you take the right-hand street, that will eventually take you to the river, which is what we're going to do. There's some nice little restaurants, cafes and bars off of that, and a few other shops as well. Now, the good thing about diverting off to the river here, you've probably already spent a couple of hours in amongst some crowds, been quite lively, a little bit noisy, and perhaps you've had a bit of a boozy lunch and you just want to get away. Well, this is a good way of doing it. It's a lovely tree-lined walk. It's got some lovely views across the river as well. And it's nice and shaded, so it gets you out of the heat if it needs be.
Right guys, we've got to Ponte Bridge, Ponte Umberto Bridge, and this is about 3/4 of the way through the walk. We're not going across the river, we're on it, but we're not going to, because that's too much for one day, especially if you've had a lunch and you want a bit of a nice dinner as well. So what we're looking at is a spring court, Corte Suprema di Cazione, and in the opposite direction, which is the direction we're going to go in, is Piazza Navona. I've already mentioned the river. If you want to go running, great place to do it. It's also a good place to get out of the sun. It's tree lined all the way down. It's absolutely lovely. So it's a good part of the walk, especially after lunch if you're feeling a little bit bilious. And for reference, in this direction behind me, you can see St. Peter's Basilica. Now you may think, well, that means it's on the same side as the river as Piazza Navona, but it's not. The river bends, which is why it's on the other side of the river. So the Vatican City, St. Peter's Basilica, they're all that way. We're not going to do any of that today. This is all about doing really just a bit of a recce, taking in the sights, understanding where we are, situating the rest of the days you've got in Rome to really sort of make the most of it. Okay, so let's crack on to Piazza Navona.
Now you can approach Piazza Navona from all sorts of different directions. We're eventually heading to the Pantheon, so we've come in from the right-hand side as you're looking at the map now. There's all sorts of restaurants on the right-hand side. I'd recommend any of them, to be honest. They're relatively touristy, but you do get good quality, authentic Roman food, and in particular, the cacio e pepe. Couldn't be any easier. Pasta, cheese, and pepper. But believe me, it tastes fantastic. So this is a great place to have it. So once you've had your pasta and a good glass of wine, I suggest walking around Piazza Navona for a little bit longer. Just suck it in. It's a great place to take some photos, but also you get some great buskers and some great music. But unfortunately, it's time to leave. You can see now in the centre of the screen, just now slightly to the right is the Pantheon. We're going to make our way slowly there. And if you just zigzag, you can take any numerous amount of ways to get there.
And if you zigzag your way there, you'll find some more restaurants, some nice little artisan shops. It's a little bit more off the beaten track, believe it or not. It feels a little bit quieter, so it's a good opportunity to, again, just to appreciate a bit of Roman atmosphere. Now, the good thing about taking this route from Piazza Navona to the Pantheon is you tend to just stumble upon it. It really is wedged in between a load of other buildings. It's not like it's got its own space, like the Colosseum, like you can see it from miles around. You really can't. So it's quite overwhelming, actually, when you sort of stumble across it. And I really do like that about it. Now, the square in front, it can be incredibly busy. It isn't so much at the moment. This is October, so quite lucky. So if you're going to queue, you're maybe 15 to 20 minutes to get in. But in August, you can queue for plus of an hour, as you would expect. But it's a fantastic place to visit. My personal favourite thing to do is to appreciate it from the front, but then circle round behind. There's a wall that you can sit on. You can get really close to the rotunda part of the building and just sit and suck it in. Again, appreciate some of that Roman atmosphere. But so, like everything in Rome, I'm sat on the wall behind the Pantheon. It's absolutely quiet. You're much, much closer to it, so you can start to feel and get a bit of appreciation of its architecture and sort of what's going on. Of course, you can go in the front, but on a normal day, it's a half an hour wait, if not more, and you've got to pay. Fine, if you want to do it, then absolutely. I like to try and appreciate these things in a little bit more isolation. And you can see how quiet it is. I mean, it's not quiet, but you can see how quiet it is around the back. And you're a lot closer, like I say. You can appreciate the difficulty that they must have gone through to build this sort of thing, because you're closer to it and you can feel it and touch it. The best time, though, to see this, for sure, is about 2, 3, if not about 4 o'clock in the morning. So you can either get up super early, or you can just party, and on your way back, bend through, have a look at the Pantheon in all its spectacular glory when it's quiet. And, it might be a few sheets to the wind at that point, so maybe you can get a little bit spiritual about it as well. Anyway, let's crack on. We're nearly at the end. We're going to go back to Monte now. What we're going to do is just whistle through. We're going to go through the really heavy touristy area in front of the Forum, just to show you how bad that can be. And then we're going to grab a bit of pizza, a glass of wine, and then I'm going to get my hair done and my beard done. Let's crack on.
So at this point, guys, you've probably really done Rome to the max. This is a great first day, so I would suggest just meandering your way back to the altar of the Fatherland that you can see in front of you there. And, once you get to the road, the other side of it, you're faced with an option. You're looking at the Colosseum, you can see it there, but do you really want to go there and try and cram that into a single day? Of course you don't. My advice would be to circle back where you came from, so Monte, and actually you can walk across that metal bridge that I showed at the start. In fact, it's right in front of us there, and you can then work your way through that metal gate and then straight to Piazza del Grillo. But of course, if you haven't quite had enough of a fix of Rome and its architecture by that point, then the good thing about Monte is it's absolutely full of churches. This church was just wedged between a random hotel and a house. Nothing special, completely empty. And look at the architecture. The marbling work is fabulous. The artistry is wonderful. The stained glass, fantastic. Proof that you just don't need to go to the Vatican to look at wonderful, complicated, sophisticated architecture in Rome.
So that's it, guys. Quick round robin, but it's a great way to just orientate yourself in Rome. It's a good first day. You'll get a decent lunch out of it. You'll get a feel for the geography, the sort of size, the amount of walking you've got to do, which is a reasonable amount. And you just soak some into the atmosphere. You'll start to do Rome properly. What you won't do is go from site to site to site, queue up, pay money, go and look at something you don't really understand, and just get bored. So what did we do? Monte to start with. We went through the back of the Forum, through that little secret bridge I told you about. Love that. Over to the Spanish Steps, up the Spanish Steps, turn left, and then to Villa Borghese, and then from there you could have gone through the park. We didn't. We went down to Piazza Polpo. Went from Piazza Polpo, then sort of down the shopping streets just to show you where that was, and then we diverted off to the right to the river to show you that, because it's a pretty nice walk. Remember, it gets you into the shade if you've had a sort of a boozy lunch or it's a particularly hot day. And that puts you on the river, and you can go running down there if you want to at another time, because there's a lot to do down there. From there, we went to the Ponte Bridge, and that orientates you to the Vatican one way and sort of Pantheon in the other direction, which is what we did. And then from there, we circled back round to Monte, showed you a little bit of that, and then I went to get my hair cut. I got a nice beard done. Look at that, great job. And I had a beer and a little bit of sort of late lunch. So hopefully you appreciate that. For me, that's the way to do it. We didn't get across the river, we didn't do any of that again. Right? It's not for me. I've seen it. Super, super busy, even out of season. You'll queue forever, sometimes kilometres, to try and get in there, and you'll be pushed through like, cattle. That's not an experience I want to do. I think you can do it, pay a bit more money, do it in the evening, do it out of season, whatever. So perhaps that's the way you want to do it, but not for me. So if you've got 3 or 4 days in Rome, for me, the walk I just showed you and the things I just showed you is a perfect day one. Like I say, it orientates you. You can get a feel for how you want to run the rest of the days. Really start to enjoy yourself in Rome. Suck up that atmosphere. Drink some of that wine and eat some of that food. Get some steps in, because you're going to eat a load of food. Anyway, hope it was useful. Ciao for now.